今回バイ3に入っているオプションセット A、B とバイ3に収録されている仮面ライダー
It's fine. It's fine. We shouldn't be seeing much remixes now that we have our ultimate form, right? Right? After all the buildup we've had these last few episodes, it's now time for the true penultimate episode of this arc. Gifu's revival looms, and I'm feeling that this episode suffers a lot from pacing issues. But, you know, we'll get to that once we get to my thoughts. I have some opinions about this episode, and they're not good. So, let's dial it back and recap. Let's go. So in the last episode, the dead men have succeeded in building up the number of sacrifices needed, with Planaria, Chameleon, and Saber-Tooth Tiger joining up in the ranks of Gift-X. Gracias Sentai Deadman have arrived. It's with this that we had the grand revelation that was made. Aguilera was the last sacrifice. However, in this episode, we find out that that's actually half true. See, Ortega's been playing the long game this whole time, and Aguilera is actually the true single sacrifice, as she was just bad for bad's sake. Well, she was actually groomed into the position, but it doesn't appear that she actually has a dead man, which sets her completely apart from everyone else. This also makes her the perfect vessel for Gifu, making the others serve as a way for channeling his return into her. The question that I had last week was answered fairly quickly in terms of whether or not Julio was aware of this fact or not, which he was not. And with his reluctance but eventual submission, Gracias Sentai Deadman tie up Aguilera as the offering and begin their Gatai sequence. However, as all this is playing out, Daiji reveals to Sakura and Iki that Phoenix actually knows the whereabouts of the Deadman's base. It turns out, yeah, a lot of you are right, that George did stick a tracking device on Gifu's ViStamp. And with that, reveals that the dead men have actually been staying in a Metroid map this whole time. However, their biggest question is, how do they enter? Well, I'm no expert, but if you zoom and enhance the map, you can see that there's an opening somewhere there in the ocean. See, I wonder if a multi-billion-dollar military organization whose base is a giant aircraft might possibly have a way to get into the water, and they don't. But as Daiji is explaining this, Sakura has the best idea ever in terms of bringing out Kagero. Just because, well, he's been to their base before, so clearly he must know how to get there. So after some reluctance, they go ahead and drag Daiji out to the play yard and, well, rider kick him into Kagero. And he willingly decides to help in exchange for some curry. I didn't like this at all. We'll discuss this bit later on. So, with the revelation of their base made apparent, Phoenix and the Igarashi family all make their way into the Deadman base, which was that nightclub that we had in the first episode. See, you know it's nice that they actually remembered about this location and didn't forget it. And also the random cultists that were there in the first episode, they're still there. I guess they've had a group of people living in their nightclub this entire time. And you know, it's nice to know that when the dead men aren't scheming, they are just raving it up from dawn till dusk. So, with that said, Phoenix fully infiltrates their base and spend half the episode fighting. Now, there are a few seeds that are planted during the fighting sequence. 1. When Julio gets knocked out of his dead man form, the camera pans to Sakura, well, after Aguilera. It's almost as if now she realizes that Julio has been that guy that's been in her classes this whole time. Because remember, that was a plot point that kind of went nowhere. 2 is George's interactions with Gifu. It's, as if this was his first time seeing it, but he seemed awfully aware of what Aguilera's fate was going to be. So he's gotta be knowing more than he's letting on. And of course he makes few attempts to try and drag Gifu out of there, but doesn't succeed. So after all of the main fighting, Iki frees Aguilera, and after the energy of the Planaria and Saber-Tooth Deadman enter Gifu, their jellyfish sombrero UFO takes to the sky. It's here that Iki summons every remix ever. And we get a giant CG fest. Like, just all the budget went here. Iki does a remix rider kick into Gifu's ship. Look, obviously, anytime I see these remixes, I am not the happiest guy. But, I guess whatever sells toys. So, yeah, Iki rider kicks Gifu's ship into a huge explosion, and we're left kind of hanging for the next episode. So, besides the CG fest of remixes that we did get, we also got some new ViStamps that were used in this episode. Genu gets a new weapon courtesy of George. The Turtle Genome makes Premium Bandai plush Lovecov transform into a big bazooka. This one is themed after Kamen Rider V3. While Demons finally got some usage this episode, only to almost die again, but he gets the Scorpion Genomics action going in, which is based off of Kamen Rider X. This gives him a CG Scorpion tail. Okay, like I said, I'll be honest, I didn't like this episode. At best, I'm gonna give this episode a C. It was the Christmas episode, and even that portion of it felt a little out of place. It served as a plot point for like a couple of gags in the beginning of the episode, but outside of that, there was also dad-ass in this episode. Dad-ass. Not dat-ass, but dad-ass. I'm not going to put it up on screen because I don't know how YouTube's going to play with dad-ass, but dad-ass was on screen. But look, the fact that we got not just the location of Deadman HQ, but we also got the infiltration of it, all within like 5 minutes of the episode starting. It's just moving way too fast. And the manner in which they got the information from Kagero was too dumb. You mean to tell me that a character that was just beating up Sakura 2 episodes ago, that kind of villain that, when he shows up, you get that, oh shit, he's coming moment, is willing to help you out for curry. This is a terrible trope. It's honestly one of my least favorite tropes, especially in Kamen Rider, is when they take these villains / anti-heroes and then just write them as joke characters later on. And I hope this is the last that we see of Kagero being this way, unless it just feels like an organic growth or change of that character. The way that this episode went, it killed some of the momentum for me. If this particular plot point was split between 2 episodes to flesh out some of the key points on here, it probably could have been handled better. The only thing I'm really curious now is how the Deadman go from here. Ortega seems to have been the one in charge the whole time, and Julio and Aguilera being saved by Phoenix might become either a third pillar group from here or ultimately end up joining up with the heroes. Next week's episode will really make or break this arc and really this episode to see if it's better because of the pacing of this episode or if it's just as breakneck when it comes to just overload. Until next time, Saraba, Gracias Sentai, Deadman. Look, I spent like 2 hours making this logo, so I'm I'm gonna get my mileage out of it.